One of the most beloved cinematic love stories ever told, The Notebook, opened in theaters 20 years ago today.
And I just wanted to see if you were okay.
What we settle for.
I have a fiancé waiting for me.
What happened? Who did you choose?
And who we're meant for.
Why didn't you write me? I waited for you for 7 years.
I wrote you every day for a year.
New Line Cinema presents Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, James Garner, Jenna Rollins, James Marsden, with Sam Shepard and Joan Allen in a Nick Cassavetes film.
I read to her, and she remembers.
The Notebook.
And a hearty welcome to one and all. We're back in the studio for episode 224 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Tuesday evening with me here in New York. Once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. Today marks the 20th anniversary since Nick Cassavetes' adaptation of Nicholas Sparks' runaway best-selling novel, The Notebook, opened in theaters. Now, in the kind of annals of not just film history, but what would be considered classic movie romances, cornball, sentimental, sappy love stories, or as I like to call them, four hanky weepers, The Notebook is certainly on the list. Now, if you ask me, is The Notebook one of the best films of its kind ever made? Love stories? No. No, it's not. It's not a very good movie if we're being in any way honest and not being kind of biased and saying, oh, it's the best movie. It's okay. It benefits from having a fantastic slam bang cast. That's the best thing it has going for it. The film is trite. It's maudlin. It works, but it works more so because the actors are so sincere than any kind of brilliant plot turns or mechanics, or even the kind of compelling nature of the story. The actors make it seem more compelling than it is. And casting Ryan Gosling, who was on the rise, perfect. Rachel McAdams, perfect casting. Getting Sam Shepard in that role, kind of a surprise for Sam Shepard to do that. For those who don't know, Sam Shepard, in addition to being an actor, he played Alan, I think he played Alan Shepard in, no relation, in The Right Stuff. Did he play Shepard? No, what the fuck am I talking about? He played Yeager. He played Chuck Yeager in The Right Stuff. But that was a surprise. Getting James Marsden, which was, well, that was after he'd already played Cyclops in, I think, 2 X-Men movies. Very, very good casting. But the casting masterstroke of the film, other than, I mean, James Garner and Jenna Rollins as, spoiler alert, Noah and Allie, as older people. But I figure if you're going to watch this episode, you already know this movie. Didn't really spoil anything. But that's conventional. That is not unusual casting. An actor like James Garner, who, you know, most younger people under 35, certainly when they only know who he is by face. Oh, that's the old guy from The Notebook. Well, James Garner, as a younger man, was a matinee idol, Abercrombie and Fitch looking guy. He was considered almost preposterously handsome, that it was difficult to take him seriously. Look at this fucking guy. Roger Moore used to get the same thing. Pierce Brosnan, another James Bond, Moore and Brosnan used to get the same criticism. You can't take this guy seriously. Look how even his features are. What the fuck? Is this guy a mutant? You're not supposed to look like this. So Ryan Gosling is an attractive man. James Garner was a perfect choice, as was Jenna Rollins. But the casting masterstroke was already 3-time Oscar nominee Joan Allen as Allie's mom. And it's another one of those roles But I've talked about the kind of role where it is dead on the page. It is a nothing character. But certain actors at certain times make magic. And I've talked about Joan Allen on the channel and how in a movie like Searching for Bobby Fischer, her character is not even close to being the central focus, but she is so commanding when she's on screen. She has such incredible screen presence that she dominates segments of Searching for Bobby Fischer by sheer force of will and the kind of ability that can't be taught. Joan Allen is one of those kind of special people. She didn't hit big at the beginning of her career. It took a while for her to get going. But once she did, she started knocking every performance out of the park, whether it was The Ice Storm, whether it was Pleasantville, whether it was Searching for Bobby Fischer, whether it was playing Pat Nixon opposite Anthony Hopkins and Nixon. She takes a rote, predictable, bland, bullshit, obvious, disapproving mother character, and she does something that you don't expect. It isn't just that it's written in, well, she kind of has her reasons. It's the conviction that Joan plays. She sells it. In much the same way, in an entirely different context, in an entirely different film, Russell Crowe, in what I think is a star-making role in Sam Raimi's The Quick and the Dead, it's Sharon Stone's movie, and you've got Leonardo DiCaprio and Gene Hackman in major roles. But the only character I really remember from that film is Russell Crowe's preacher, a character that is a fucking zero on the page. There is nothing to that character other than a brilliant young actor figuring out how to take a movie, put it on his back, and become the only character that we really remember when it's all said and done. Joan Allen is so strong in The Notebook, she could have gotten another Oscar nomination in a movie that was not geared for the Oscar crowd. This was just geared to get at the tear ducts. And hey, it succeeds admirably, no doubt about it. In large part due to the other performances as well as Joan. But often in movies, when you have a flashback structure or a framing device is what we call it, a framing device. But framing, in other words, a bookend, one side and the other. James Garner, Jenna Rollins here, and here, and here, and here. And then in the 1940s and 50s, Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, here, 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 here. Now, this movie is problematic in its first act. If we're being honest, and this is something that me as a young, well, we didn't use the word incel, but we can use it here. We're all adults. But as a young incel, the actions that Ryan Gosling's character take are completely unacceptable. How many different times does Allie say the word no? She doesn't want to go out with him. Don't do that. He does it anyway. But see, the great advantage of looking like Ryan Gosling is you've got a lot more rope before you actually hang yourself. If you're a normal looking person who falls madly in love and she's my soulmate 20 seconds after saying hello, if you look like a normal person, you're just a fucking creep. Throw a net on this guy. But it's Ryan Gosling. He's dreamy, right? He was in Barbie. The guy looked ridiculous, and I mean that in the best possible sense. He gets away with it. It's no problem. Try that in a real-world setting in 1940, whatever. Try that in the New York University of 1995, when a girl says, I don't think I want to give you my phone number. Sorry, you seem like a nice enough guy, but I don't think so. Well, I'm going to jump off the Empire State Building unless you give me your fucking phone number. Not going to work. I'm going to die if you don't give me your phone number. Or as my sister would say, no thank you. We're all set here. That's what happens in the real world. But in the world of the movie, we go with it because he is sincere. And obviously she's attracted to him. And he is not presented as a troll. He is not a bad guy. He is not toxic, even though that behavior, red flag city, we go with it. But it is part of the reason why this is not a great film. This is a good movie for the genre of cinematic romance, which is sort of a subgenre. But if you ask me, what are the best movies in this ballpark? It's two movies that run rings around The Notebook, if we're being completely honest here. And I understand critics don't always know what they're doing. Critics make mistakes. Even the best critics will have swings and misses. My guy, Roger Ebert, the late, great Pulitzer Prize winning critic, I can give you chapter and verse on a ton of movies. He got it fucking so wrong. That's one critic. When you have, en masse, hundreds of critics, and you have a certain Rotten Tomatoes score, for example, it's generally indicative. The Rotten Tomatoes score on The Notebook is 54%. It ain't even certified fresh. That's 60. It's an entertaining movie. It gets you in the feels. But it gets you in the feels stuff, I got to give credit to James Garner. Wonderful old actor by that point. Always believable. Old-fashioned, old-school tough. Whether he was on TV with Brett Maverick a million years ago, The Rockford Files, Murphy's Romance, he won a Best Supporting Actor Oscar. He just had a certain charm and a certain gravitas in almost every role as he aged and no longer looked like an Abercrombie & Fitch model. But his performance, I believe, is what puts the film over the top, and it's waterworks at the end. When we see the level of this man's dedication and what he's willing to do, that he's willing to say this, tell the same story in the hope that he'll get a couple of minutes with his soulmate as herself. Not as the kind of kind and gentle person she is before she realizes who she's talking to, but with her. There is a certain poetry in Garner's line readings throughout the story, because he has a lot of lighthearted moments. But when he hits, he hits. And it's great to see someone like James Garner, who I was a fan of long before seeing The Notebook. I love his performance in Maverick, kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to his old Brett Maverick TV series. I think, is he supposed to be kind of playing himself, but Mel Gibson is the son? I don't know. But I thought he was terrific in that movie. Absolutely holding his own with Mel. And Jodie Foster, for that matter. There's a little bit of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in the 1994 Richard Donner film Maverick. And to be more specific, speaking of romance, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the character of Elsa, she basically has sex with Henry Jones Sr. and Henry Jones Jr. Nice work if you can swing it. Or as Sean Connery says, when his son, Indy, or Henry Jones Jr., is with a croaked shock, my dad fucked the same woman as me? What the hell's happening here? Well, I'm as human as the next man. I was the next man. Dad, you're old enough to be her grandfather. She talks in her sleep. I didn't trust her. Why did you? But in Maverick, we're led to believe that Jodie Foster has her way with both Brett Maverick and his pappy, Brett Maverick. Well, there it is. When I think of great, the best cinematic romances. Now, there's different levels of movies that would have to be qualified as romances or romantic or love stories. There's different kinds of love stories. Martin Scorsese's The Age of Innocence is a love story, but it is very unconventional. It is an unrequited, 99.9% unrequited love story. Newland Archer and Countess Olenska. Michelle Pfeiffer, Daniel Day-Lewis. one of Daniel Day-Lewis's best performances, but it doesn't matter. That's not a movie where he's really gets to show off his acting chops. It's a fucking incredible film. I mean, there were NYU professors that said that The Age of Innocence was Scorsese's masterpiece. I don't agree with that. But they felt it was the best film that he ever made or could ever make. It was just about perfect. You can't do what he did any better. He took a great book, which was not so easy to adapt, and he made a masterpiece. I agree it's a masterpiece, but it's not his best film. That I don't agree with. But that's a great love story. Not all love stories have to end with or even middle with two people having sex. What's unspoken, what's undone. Remains of the Day, another great love story between Mr. Stevens and Miss Kenton. Also doesn't go the way that you expect it to. But the two movies in the ballpark of The Notebook, in other words, two characters meet, they like each other's looks, maybe they immediately have sex, maybe they don't. Maybe they're having an affair, maybe they're not having an affair. Maybe only one of them is having an affair. David Lean, 1945, Brief Encounter, I think is the gold standard. David Lean was the man. He's one of the all-timers. Didn't make as many great movies as most of the other masters, whether it's Hitchcock, whether it's even Kubrick, or Scorsese, or Spielberg, or Coppola. But David Lean, you want to talk about a guy that could do anything. He could make Lawrence of Arabia. He could make A Passage to India. And he could also make Brief Encounter. Now, Brief Encounter does not really have much in common with The Notebook other than it is a story of two people who are prevented by circumstance from doing what they really want to do. In the world of Brief Encounter, they're both married. The magnificent, the great, legendary alcoholic who somehow managed to work as if he was sober 100% of the time, Trevor Howard, is a married doctor. He meets Celia Johnson. She's also married. They're in London. They meet by chance at a train station. And they basically start an affair. Not an affair to remember, but they start an affair. But it's not an affair based on sex. They clearly fall in love. They're both married. He's going to be moving away soon. They pretty much are in a self-limiting situation. And Trevor Howard even kind of joked about it. They're filming a famous scene where he actually gets her alone in an apartment. He's probably got about a half hour. Maybe he's got 15 minutes. We don't know. Maybe he's got 2 hours. We don't know. But it's not his apartment. So they get into the apartment and he starts fucking around with the fireplace. And I remember watching the movie and said, what is he doing? What? He just brought her back here to get her clothes off. What's he doing? What? Sure enough, when that scene was being filmed, Trevor Howard allegedly turned to David Lean and he didn't understand the scene. He basically said, Dave, my character wants to fuck her. What is he doing with the fireplace? What is he doing futzing around with the fireplace? What is he doing? Yeah, I asked the same question. What is he doing? That movie is just about perfect. Every scene, every beat, every gesture. Celia Johnson didn't really have much of a career. I don't know why. She's marvelous in that film. Trevor Howard was someone who, probably because of his lifestyle, always looked older than he was. But man, does he nail that role. He's so sincere and she's so sincere. And sometimes people just run out of time. Brief Encounter. #1 best movie of this kind, in my opinion, ever made. #2, oh, and by the way, Brief Encounter, well into the 90s, Rotten Tomatoes. You will not find that many non-spectacular rave reviews of David Lean's Brief Encounter. Now, the second film is The Bridges of Madison County. Easily top 5 best book adaptations ever. It did have an advantage, though. The book is terrible. The book's terrible. I've read it. Robert James Waller, I give the guy all the credit in the world, selling, best-selling book, made a ton of money. The book is not good. It's not good. Somehow, Clint Eastwood was able to take the outline of the story of the book, which was not bad. There's nothing wrong with the concept. It's just the execution of the book, it doesn't work. It's just not good. But Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep in that film, the ages that they were in real life, Meryl was probably in her mid-40s at the time. I think she was mid-40s. And Clint was in his mid-60s and playing a little bit younger. I think Robert Kincaid, the National Geographic photographer Clint plays, I think he's supposed to be in his late 50s, mid-50s. I don't know if Waller actually explains or tells us how old he is. But he just, his description, his prose, it's not good. Well, what can I tell you? I'm sorry. I couldn't do any better, but it's still not good. But that movie, with different stakes than either Brief Encounter or The Notebook, sets a course and nails it. Because in that movie, Meryl's character is not necessarily unhappy. She's not unhappily married, but she's not satisfied. And this isn't something that I ever would have thought of as a child. You don't think in terms of, well, she's happy on the surface, but the guy doesn't really do it for her. He never did. He got her away from a life of boredom in Bari, Italy, brought her here to Iowa. They have 2 amazing kids. But she's fucking bored being a housewife. She needs a little excitement. She needs something. And the something turns out to be a National Geographic photographer, Robert Kincaid. So that movie, Clint's character, hey, he's single. He's, free and clear. He's not doing anything wrong. Well, he is doing something wrong because he knows she's married. But the romance between them is layered and in stages, and to the film's credit, Clint does not play the kind of alpha male that he had frequently played in earlier films. See, the thing with Clint Eastwood, very few conventional romantic leads in a 6-decade career. You could argue that only this movie and 2 movies prior, In the Line of Fire, does Clint play anything even close to a conventional romantic lead. Now, that doesn't mean that his characters don't hook up in movies or have something that seems like a semblance of a relationship or a love interest. But you know what I'm saying when I say a conventional romantic lead. I mean, here's the hero, here's the girl, here's the events of the story. Can the hero get the girl? Keanu Reeves in Speed. That's a conventional romantic lead. Hell, Richard Dreyfuss in The Goodbye Girl. You understand what I mean. The Bridges of Madison County hits the right notes, and it's believable. It tugs at the heartstrings, but they get the time period right. The movie is set in present day and also flashes back to sometime in the early 1960s when the main events of the story transpire. And there are no moments that take us out of the fiction because we say, well, this is just idiot plot here. This is bullshit. I don't believe this character. I don't think this would have happened. The Notebook has a lot of those kind of overwrought plot mechanics. I wrote you every day. I waited for you for 7 years. There's a lot of stuff that happens, in my opinion, it feels like for the convenience of the plot. But Bridges of Madison County lays out, as does Brief Encounter, lays out stakes that are plausible, that make sense given where the characters are in their lives. If you have 2 married people and one of them is moving away, they got nowhere to go. Now, they could have sex multiple times, but this is it. The last hurrah, how sad it is. And in Bridges of Madison County, Meryl Streep's character doesn't even have a Faustian bargain. She doesn't really have a choice. It's not a question of, well, is this realistic? But it would be completely unrealistic if after 4 days of, having, as she says, fucking on the linoleum floor for 4 days, we just met 96 hours ago. Am I going to run away with you? What fucking grass are you smoking? Get me some. You know? What are you taking, bro? Come back to me, bro. Get the fuck out of here. We got to be serious. I've got 2 kids. What am I going to do? Tag along as you take pictures around the country? What the fuck are you talking about? Again, to Clint's credit, he was willing to let his character, who is early on presented as a very together, virile, masculine, alpha male, it turns out that he's not. And Meryl, whose character seemed weak and ineffectual, and as just unfortunate to say it, ripe for the pickings, she turns out to be alpha female. She starts telling him how it's going to be. But even with that being said, during the courtship, unlike Ryan Gosling's Noah, during the phase where Clint and Meryl are just getting to know one another, he understands, okay, she's married. They're only gone for another 3 days, whatever it is. She doesn't seem like an unhappy person, but he never says anything indicating, you're my soulmate, I love you, I'll die if you don't give me your phone number, I will kill myself if you don't allow me to take you to the movies or take you on a date. He doesn't do any of that. In fact, Clint's character continues to ask questions. Is this okay? Is this okay? I would like to do this. Tell me if that's wrong. And his line reading of, if you want me to stop, tell me now. Yeah, his character's got a head of steam because he's about to get there with Meryl Streep. Well, Francesca Johnson. But you don't doubt his sincerity. I doubted that Ryan Gosling really wanted to kill himself. I don't doubt that Clint, in that moment, that the way his character is presented, if Francesca Johnson leans into him, they start to kiss, and then she backs away, he's not going to advance on her. All of those moments in Bridges are very believable. All of those kinds of moments of the desire, the need, the anguish in Brief Encounter, believable. Oh, and let me be clear, the desire and the need and the anguish is not fake in The Notebook. It's the mechanisms of plot that I didn't buy, that I think are not altogether believable. But it's just my opinion. This is just conjecture, right? You're allowed to say, bro, Brief Encounter doesn't sound interesting. And I saw Bridges in Madison County. It fucking sucked. The Notebook runs rings around it. Fine. It's okay. I love arguing about movies. I love to be proven wrong, although this is not really a right or wrong kind of thing. This is feeling. This is what were your emotions watching it. Is The Notebook a film that you can watch beginning to end multiple times? I've seen Brief Encounter at least 5 times start to finish. I am never not riveted. And the ending is fucking incredible. Celia Johnson and the actor who plays the husband, masterclass in about 30 seconds at the end. And Clint and Meryl, fantastic, right? Ryan and Rachel are also fantastic. It's just a matter of opinion. Now, I should also point out, unfortunately, before I close this episode, I just read this story that the actress Jenna Rollins, who is now in her 90s, she plays old Allie. She now has Alzheimer's, just like her character. And that is really horrible. It would be horrible if Jenna Rollins wasn't in this movie and had developed Alzheimer's. What a great actress. Movies like Gloria, her husband, John Cassavetes, the son, Nick Cassavetes, who directed this film, The Notebook. He was quoted, he's the one who broke the news. I'm sorry to have to tell you this about my mom. I know a lot of people are big fans of hers, especially because of The Notebook. I guess at this point, we just hope that she is peaceful. And maybe there are moments in a day, like the character of Allie, where she is her authentic, real self. Jenna Rollins was a wonderful, wonderful actress. Look at movies like Gloria from the early 80s. She was tough. She was very, resourceful and versatile. In one of her best later performances, a movie called Playing by Heart, a fantastic ensemble film with Dennis Quaid and Angelina Jolie, even Jon Stewart, among many others. And she plays Sean Connery's wife in the film, and man, does she give it. She really brings it. She keeps Connery on his toes, and they are magic together. 20 years ago today, June 25th, 2004, The Notebook opened in theaters. Big box office hit too, grossed almost $120 million. It's pretty good for a four-hanky weeper of a film. This has been episode 224 of the Confessions of a Not-So-Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Tuesday evening with me here in New York. If you catch this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, turn on those notifications. I'll be back with episode 225 real soon. Until then,